So we've got a lovely kind of nod to the coronation here with something a bit traditional. Lovely, what do you call it? Cream tea, scones and tea. So I thought I'd have a go at this one. I know a lot of people have really enjoyed doing this week. Um, so just going in with obviously I'm going in with a very much a lighter colour. But if you're doing this in pastel, I would just go in with a slightly different, just one tone lighter or dark, and then you can rub it out. But obviously I'm doing this so you can see it. So really, as we often do, easy, you can have a go at doing this either using a grid. Actually can't see that, using a 4/4 grid, or you can just work out proportionally even over just over halfway whereabouts these plates and things sit. So for example, this plate here, we can see it takes up over half, and the scones are actually, there's quite a lot of depth to them, isn't there? So I always tend to go and put in the biggest item first, but I'm going to be mindful of where the edge of this where the edge of the tablecloth comes to, etc., and just make sure I've got a few little marks in there so that we can get the whole composition in before I really commit to popping it down. So you can pop your little grid in if you want, or you can even, just a little trick is just to put one just across the middle like that, and then that kind of reminds you where each quarter is without going into your drawing. So yeah, I'm thinking about this, this plate coming down kind of here. I'm looking up here to making sure that I've got a little corner of where I think I want to place the tablecloth or the cloth that we've got there, or the mat. And then obviously I'm looking here, this comes right to the outside edge where the teacup is. I'm just going to pop where I think this cup's going to come up to, like just where the edge of the rim is of the teacup. So I'm just popping a few little marks in so that we're already starting to think about it. So again, over here in this quarter, I'm just looking at where perhaps the saucer might come. I don't need to put absolutely everything in, but I'm just getting these few little bits in, and it just starts us to think. And then obviously this takes up a really big section. So again, I'm just kind of thinking to myself, oh, how much space does that take? This comes all the way down here as well. And we'll probably get rid of some of these marks, but at least we're helping ourselves by just kind of getting a few in. Okay, so one of the things on this particular picture, which is quite interesting, and it's really good practice anyway, and obviously we do lots of experimenting, is looking at the ellipsis of things, just like the curve really, and how deep the curve is, because everything is different, whether you're doing a vase, a cup, a glass, plates. But it's really good practice for actually doing the ellipsis as well as looking at the colours and tones of everything. So one of the ways we can do that is, working out the curve on it, is we can just pop, a point where we can see the middle, where the middle of the plate is, where we get the little edge there. We can take that across. I'm just wondering if have I got the right picture there, or is it? No, I haven't. Now, my apologies. I'm just going to switch this over, because when I'm looking, I think I've got the small picture on the front and it cuts off, doesn't it? So what I'm actually drawing is not right. So I'll just get the right one out. I don't know why I've got that one, but never mind. That's all right. So I've got the one that's actually on the front of the paper, and it doesn't get the whole picture in. I did think that was strange. I thought, I'm sure I could see there we go, that's better. Right, so sorry about that. I'll start that bit again. So here we go. That's it. So still get it in. Let's pop a bit of the paper there. I might just have to move my things over slightly. That's fine. Right, yeah. So if we're looking at this is slightly different, isn't it, where everything is? Having set this out this morning, I did think, oh, okay. So I'm just going to switch. And this is the beauty of just doing a few light marks, you see, because you can just kind of rub them out as you go along, really, just nice and gently. I'm still going to have this in place, just so I can see. I'm going to do exactly the same again. I'm looking, obviously, this comes up quite a midway up here. Pop corner of the edge of the cloth, just as before. And then where this plate seems to come down to here. Now it does go off the side of that one. And then where I think the plate comes down to, and if you look here, this is almost halfway, isn't it? So it does come a fair way. Although I am just going to change the shape of my paper slightly because that's better. That's more of an A size. My paper was a bit wide. You do need to do that. Making lots of adjustments today. Just showing actually if we do make an error, we can quite quickly correct them and it's not really a big issue at all. So try that again. So yes, we're about halfway down here. If something does look out, it could just be that your shape of your paper isn't an A size, and obviously as we're scaling up, it's a bit different. And then obviously that I've got the end of this as well. Around here. So just to kind of work out whereabouts some of these are going to come in. Same again, I'm just going to quickly do what I'd said before, just moving things along a little bit, looking at the teacup. Yeah, so this is just really small ideas in here. Looking at where that comes over the line here. And we're just making sure we're getting everything on kind of the outer edges, and that's probably where that goes. Okay, so there we go. So I've just kind of got some marks and we're already then, that helps us to start thinking, what have we got, what do we need? So then we can look at the ellipses, because I know this plate comes down and I can look at the fact that it comes all the way across this area here, this middle, and it comes round just the edge of the ellipsis there. You can see it starts here. So just to kind of make sure I've got the curve in the right place, if I hold a ruler or a pencil or something across, I can work out, how steep is this ellipsis across the middle? Does it come right down, or is it really narrow? So the difference between that, for example, and the crown, show you is really different. There we go. So this crown, for example, the ellipsis on that is really narrow. So it's really not very deep, just a very narrow ellipsis. So we can just kind of fact check all the time when we're doing it, is it right? So when I'm looking at that, I'd expect it to come down a fair way. Yeah, so I'm like looking, that's probably fine. And I'm looking at the way it comes down and the way it curves round. It's just a gentle curve, isn't it? And then we see, I'm moving this bit up a little bit, the curve coming around the other side as well. So that helps with all of these curves, getting that right into place. So now I'm going to take this section now and particularly look at this. So we know that these scones, I'm actually going to move that up slightly a bit more. Behind there, isn't it? Just bring those scones up, across, come across this middle section, don't they? And this is where we can use these lines to affect quite well. And then we've got the jam coming up. And then just going to pop that in the back, but I'm really going to focus on this big one because it takes up almost, look how wide that is at the front. So I'm going to bring that right out, just the general shape of it on the plate. Comes right out, takes up quite a lot of space there. And it's quite tall as well. When you look at how far it comes up, it's almost just here with the gem on it. Now we can alter the shape and everything of it a bit later, but there we go. And again, then I'll just move out a little, just get that shape underneath there. And then because we've used two to stack off against each other, we can then get that third one in. And again, just look at the distance between here. And again, it's stacked quite tall, is that one, isn't it? Got an unusual shape, and then it comes down onto the plate, and then it comes round like that. There we go. So we've got like the start of the biggest item, and then we can start, to take, I always take the next biggest item. I'll take that teacup and get that off here. Now what I might do actually is pop in some of this so I know where it starts and finishes, because it'll have an angle. So I'm looking at the fact that it comes up a little bit up here, disappears down the back of there, like that. But what I'm going to do is just fact check the angle going across like that, even though there's a bit of a bump on it, because what I can do is look at where it finishes. So this is the middle line, it comes down here, and then just fact check it with a, you don't even have to use a ruler, but I'm just going to just make sure. It just helps give us, it might come down even a bit thinner actually, because we've got, we've got this cake coming right up. What it does is allow us to think about like where the teacup comes up from there as well. So again, we can look at the ellipsis of the curve going round. And the more we do these, the more we can really kind of imagine what that looks like. And this one comes right out. You kind of get an equal curve on that, like this one at the back. And then a lot of it's hidden, isn't it? But again, we can check the ellipsis on settings out like that. This one's just a little bit less of a pull, but this one's near the front. But we know it's going to come down, and it kind of comes behind there, so we can't altogether see where that is. There we go. So we've started to put that in. I'll probably alter it a little bit as we're going, because I need to put this will come over the top. But we want to kind of get the curve and where this comes down to on the rim here. So let's have a little look. This is always interesting when you get like the bottom of the teacup. You can't really see too much of it there, just because of the way the light shines. But what we can do is decide whereabouts it starts in relation to this quarter as well up here. So I'm just going to bring that out a bit, the edge, and bring it out up to here. And then there's just almost, you can do the ellipsis, so you can follow the ellipsis shape, but you can just make it a little bit wavy. But then up the back, again, we're just looking at the curve, so that it's less obvious the wave at the back, isn't it? So, and then we can get like the shape as well of the T in there. That's more gentle curves, and then we can move up. If we need to move up the teacup, we can move that up. And then again, we're just going to bring that curve down. And the same on the other side. Okay, just going to get the handle in there. And again, we just look at where it starts and the shape of it, and we're just following the shape of it round. Sometimes they're a bit tricky to do, but this one's okay. And we just look at the inside of that shape, bring it round and up, and then it kind of disappears. You can just get a hint of it, but we can't see too much there. So I can see already I need to just change where my sauce is coming. It needs to come down. Okay, so what we need to pop in then is the last two items on here. So we've got this, again, it's quite wide, isn't it? It's almost as wide as the thing. So again, let's just have a little look. And again, if you look at the ellipses on these, maybe a small one, yeah, it's also okay, it's a bit wider. Sometimes when things are nearer to you, they are, they do look wider. So it depends on which one you want to put. You can kind of shuffle them about, no problem. So I'm going to have this one actually goes up here, so it covers a little bit of that teacup. And again, you can reshuffle that ellipsis again. It's not a problem. And then we want the curve. Sometimes these kind of jump out a little bit. Here, I'm going to pop the spoon in and the jam, so how far that jam comes up. And that's amazing colours in there. And then this spoon. There we go. Again, we're just popping, little details in where they go. And then, of course, we've got, you can almost see just a bit of a lip under there. We can get those little details in when we do it. So we can see it's quite deep. We can capture those once we've got the bits and pieces. And then we've got this last one. So again, we know that this comes round. The ellipsis on that touches the plate, edge of the plate. Maybe it's not quite so far down there though. Move this plate round a bit there. So we know that this clotted cream is in here. We're just kind of getting this dish shape in as well. And again, we're watching this ellipsis come round. And right out, actually doesn't go in there. We can see the dish going round this on the inside though, is where the cream comes down. And then we can see, again, this edge of the this clotted cream coming down there. a bit underneath the dish underneath. Around a bit further, put that in. Yeah, and we'll just adjust those little bits as we see. So we've pretty much plot out what we've got. The only thing obviously is to think about just the angle of this cloth here, so we can just transfer that underneath. Just helps get the tablecloth. But again, you know, we can change the angle of the tablecloth. We can leave spoons out. We can do whatever we like, really. As artists, we can choose. You know, you can even use the background of your paper. I've got a dark one here, but you can just use that to, without having to actually colour in as such. You know, I'm going to use that to let that come through the background of this wood area here, as though there's wood, or just a dark area behind on the table. So I'm going to use that to enhance what I've got there. I might even use it to enhance the tea colour as well. So yeah, so what we will be doing now is having a little go at starting to block some things out, you know, get some of these colours in. Just again, be mindful that we don't rub in dark colours over lights, because that will make it muddy. So we've got to be careful the more layers we put on, just to make sure that we don't kind of, you know, disturb the underlayers too much, so we can get them nice and sealed in. Where we can, we'll put the darks on first, so that we can kind of control more where we, but if you have got a dark that overlaps, then that's fine. Just be a bit more careful the way you put it on. And most importantly, it'll be best fit in terms of colour. So, you know, you can layer up similar tones so that they won't go muddy if you've got similar tones on there and you want to kind of create two ones. But just go bold with your colour as well. It doesn't always have to be a perfect match with pastels, because you can get quite a nice effect doing it a different way. We're often a bit more brave with our colour. So I'm just going to go in, I'm just going to pop a few. I'm going to use pencils quite a bit today. I'm just going to pop a few colours in for this tea colour. I might start some of them a little bit with pastel and then work into it with the tea. So I'm just going to go in here with a few other colours. So you can work around it, adding them, or you can just put in, you know, pop your own in. It's entirely up to you. But I'm going to go in with this scone over here. I'm going to go in with the darker areas. I will add some, I can actually add some other colours with pencil, but I'm just going to go in with some bigger areas. If I've got a bigger area, it makes sense to use a bigger pastel just to cover it quite nicely. So I'm fixing that in well, making sure there's plenty on. So I'm kind of matching up some of these tones. And again, you know, I'm just going to go for best fit. I'm not going to get too caught up in it. I'm just going to go in with the similar tones here with the scones. Let's see what else might I put on. So it's just that they're thinking about then what colours you need to pop in there. So I want some darker ones in there. I'm going to get those fixed in now. I'm going to go in with some that are darker, but again, you know, I've got my bit of tester because I can never really remember some of these browns and things like that because they're so similar. So what I sometimes do, just give them a good test. So I'm just going to go in and get some of these little kind of textures and things in the scones that we can see. Where you've got some darker areas as well. Pressing down nice on a bit harder on these, make sure that they're in. And then looking at some of these, there's some lighter ones in there as well. So I'm going to go in there, see what I've got, which is, I think I'm going to go for yellowy. And this is why it's, it's nice to be able to see, have a little think about what colours you want to put in. Just a bit of contrast there. You can use a little blender if you want. These are all similar tones, so we're not, it's not going to be a big muddy mess, but obviously got to be avoiding a little bit some of the other ones. And then obviously right at the top of there, we've got some of the really brights. Now, sometimes a white pastel pencil, the one I've got, it doesn't always give it exactly the shine that I want. So I sometimes go in with just an ordinary, in fact, I'm going to just an ordinary highlight. So with a pastel. So I just want to kind of capture the top where it shines a little bit on here. You go with a different tone, but I'm going in with this one, this lighter one, because I really want it to kind of catch it. Yeah. There we go. We're just making some of the textures we can see on there, popping in some of the tones, as I said, yellows or ochres or whatever it is you've got. So I'm seeing that coming down here, looks a bit ochre down there. And of course, I've got a dark colour under, so that will be making a difference as to, what colour, how that's coming through and everything. So if you go darker, then obviously your lighter things will need, will really kind of sing once you put them in. It may feel quite intense, whereas when you put in the reds and things on, it doesn't. So I'm just going to kind of pop in one of these colours. Even use, the dark underneath for some of the shadows to come through. Or if you're going on a light colour background, then, it's vice versa. Let the light come through if you want to a bit on there. Okay, so it's building that up. So I think at this point, before I do any more, I might actually just pop a little bit of that light coloured background in. I'm just going to go for, I don't really know what colour I'm going to go for actually. Just to kind of, I'm going to mainly go for just a light blue, so I kind of get that in, get the waves. It'll look quite intense this though, because it's a very light blue. I'm not going to put any checks on it for the moment. And again, you can use your blending stick around it. Now you don't, I've just decided to put this in, and then I can kind of like just put a little bit of detail over the top, but you can do it the other way around. We're just having an experiment tonight. Doesn't really matter. And the same underneath here. Thing is, sometimes with backgrounds, it's better to leave them because you don't always know what you're going to do. It evolves sometimes. Sometimes you think, I don't want to put all those checks on. actually. I just like a nice simple one. So I'm not going to, that's why I'm not putting the text on, because I haven't decided yet what I want to do. And I'd rather hold fire and see how it emerges and then make a decision about it. So I'm just taking it up enough so that I can kind of get some of these underneath. That's, right. Okay, so I've got kind of got enough in now so that I can start to kind of put some of those shadows as we go through. So I'm just going to go in and get some of this light colored cream in. So again, that's a decision to make about what color pastel you've got that's going to be your best fit. Let's try this. So that's really peachy. It's not going to be any good for me. And I don't think I want to go in with the brightest white because I want to use that for highlights. It's kind of a creamy colour. Let's have a little look what else is in my kit. Okay, that's probably a better one. So we are just looking at best fit all the time, really. So I'm just going to get where I think that's going to go, where the cream is. Start to put that in. And really, it's nice because we can work in sections on a still life. You don't have to like put all of the blocking of colour in first, etc. You can just work on a section from start to finish if you want to. Then it feels like, you know, there's more is happening and it's more. And then here. Not quite see how far up that cream comes actually around there. I think it's kind of on the top. But yeah, we're just kind of like making the shapes again with our pastels. But again, you know, if you want more control over it, you can just and just use your blending, you know, use a blender. Like remember to get rid of some of the dust as well. And then I'll brighten some of those up with some of, you know, where the light catches it in a bit. I'm just going to move on to these this jam. So again, the jam's an interesting one because it just depends on the colours you've got in your kit. You may have one that's not kind of quite the colour that you want. It's quite pink. But I may use pink anyway within that and a couple of darker tones with it. So let's see what this red does in here. I may have to overlay her as well a little bit. Get the colour that I want to get. Let's see. It's quite a dark. Some of that area is quite dark, isn't it? Not quite. That's a bit purpley. It's very pink. But together, it does actually sometimes work quite well. So I'm just going to go in. Not quite right. Almost kind of a raspberry colour, isn't it? But yeah, it will just depend on what colour you've got. And also if you've got two that you can overlay, and if you haven't, then don't worry. We've gone in with the best fit. Now this is where you've got to be a bit careful because you don't want this to kind of go in too much of a mushy mess on top of the other one. So at the moment we've just got these two tones. But it's quite dark in places. Let's see. I'll just go in with a bit of a purpley colour and see if that's not quite dark enough. That's the colour it is then. Let's go in with a darkish, more browny colour in there. That might work, just to make that a bit darker. Or a blue even. You could go in with a blue, to be fair. That would probably work as well. Just going to pull down some of the colours in there. Oh, there we go. That's a better purple. There we go. And then you can go in, obviously, and just get some of the brights in there as well. Put that there, where it's dark. And then have a little look at where you've got the white patches. So it depends entirely what colour you want to go in that. Whether you're going with the white or you're going with a light pink, it's entirely up to you. I'm going to try. I did have a really pastel pink in there. I'm going to try going in with that first. So again, I'm just going to be careful. Just doing where it catches the light. We've got kind of, it's just catching the light with the gem on top. So I'm going to do the other one at the same time. Of course, easy to match it. So you see that's really bright, and that on its own, it just works quite nicely in with the colour. Again, you know, it's just kind of picking up those light shades, those lighter tones on there. You know, it's just comparing. So I've gone for a slightly lighter pink because that to me feels much more white. So that's how I'm judging it. But you know, we all see things in different colours, this is the thing. So right, so I'm going to work a little bit on this cream, just make it a little bit more like just where it's kind of the brights are coming through. I'm just gonna pop some of those brighter colour, like brighter whites where you're getting the kind of the bits, the edges of the clotted cream are coming out, just to make that pop a bit. Okay, so just kind of starting to look at popping in some of the colours of the scone now. Again, it's, you know, it may be that we're on a best fit, depending on what colours you've got in your kit. Just going to test this one. Okay, that's a bit better. You can kind of go up to the edges. I'm just going to let the edge of the paper come through. Yes, I'm going to pop a bit more shine on that one. So I'm just building it up really. So I'm building this one up as well. So I've got a few, you know, darker bits to put in, etc. And then front ones. So we're starting to kind of get some shape to it now. So it's just looking at what we want to do. So I'm going to put a warmer colour through there, kind of a more rusty colour, I think. So I'm just going to go for just sometimes popping a little bit more warm through, just creates a little bit more shape. So I'm just weaving those through. That's a bit happy with that now. And then I can see then where those little really dark kind of just bits on top are, you know, where you get a little bit of a burnt bit there. That's not the most, I think that brown's better. That's better, a bit more depth to that one. And I'm just deepening some of these colours that I've put on these darks as well. Here. And then I'm starting to deepen, you know, where I can see any areas of shadow in here as well. So that helps us as well. And then between, where we've got between the scones, so you can get the scone shape in there. But you can see some of these areas are actually quite dark, aren't they, between them? And it goes on to the next scone as well. So, mindful of how I rub that in. Be very careful there. Yes, and continue that round. And then we can start to pop in again some of these, you know, shapes in. And wiggle your pastel or your pencil just to get that kind of, it's like almost a crust, isn't it? The same on the other. There we go. So start to do that. So again, you can just pop that over with a bit of, just kind of pop it in with a bit of the, so we're just creating a bit of, might be some different colours and tones on there. So if you've got like some yellows you want to weave through, etc., you can just pop those on. And sometimes you do get a bit of yellowing through them. Okay. So that's like obviously one part. There's still things you can do. I'm just going to make that a bit brighter again because it's kind of done. There we go. And again, even on your phone, if you've got some lighter areas, you need to kind of highlight now. Get those highlighted a little bit where the light's coming on them. Or if you've got a dusty bit on the base, you can pop those on. And again, you can brighten any areas, for example, of cream again. So it's a game of contrast. We're just looking at the contrast all the way through this. Okay. So again, with the plate, we can just, again, just have a little look at what colour. There's all sorts of colours on here, isn't there? So I'm going to go almost for, I'm going to use pencils over the top. I'm going to go for almost, it's not, there's kind of some shadows and things, some purpley ones. So I'm going to go for a bit of a violetty tone, a darker one here, where that shadow is. It's kind of coming off the edge. That's what I can see anyway, but this is what I was saying, we all see things with our own colours, don't we? So and then there's a darker shadow here, which I don't feel is grey. But maybe, so it's maybe a bit more, but maybe that one is a bit more grey actually. So I'll pop that in here. Whereas this one feels a bit more lilac, but that's a bit lighter, so I want to go darker grey. Should have tested that, shouldn't I? That's really light actually, that one. So maybe that one is, or maybe this one. Yeah, I'll go for that one. And then again, so I am just going to be mindful of this. My fingers getting really muddy, and I always say to everyone, make sure you clean your fingers off in between these darker colours and everything. So I'm just going to go in now with a lighter colour around here. So that is very white, isn't it? There are some lighter areas on here, but I'm still going to go in with one that's not the lightest, and then I'm going to pop the highlights on afterwards. So I'll bring that in. Now this is where you do need to be a bit careful, otherwise it will be a bit more muddy. So this isn't going in bright white to start with, funnily enough. I'm just going in with a slightly different colour. It's a bit dark under there, but we'll get the darks in as well of the plate to make sure we can see. Yep. And then we'll go in. I want to get my real shadow, so I'm going to go in with a really dark one, and maybe black here. It's very dark under there, under that. That's quite a shadow that's gone. And then here again, it has quite a shadow underneath there. And put that in. That one's less, so that's more there. So it's really where the very darkest are. And I'm going to look between and see if there's anything I can see just between there. No, it's more here. So there is some quite dark areas between there. I'm just going quite lightly with that. Okay. But again, this is a game of contrast. You might not want such a contrast. I know I've said before, I really like when I'm doing mine a strong contrast. I can really appreciate other people's that aren't a strong contrast, but when I'm doing my own piece, so you need to decide, is that black, if it's really too strong, then by all means don't do that. Okay, so I've got this edge in here, but what I'm looking at is we've kind of got, this actually comes out on the rim, quite some here, quite bright there, quite dark, sorry, and it comes round, almost like a pattern on the plate. I see something here, it could be a bit of yellow, might just be a bit of an old pattern. So I'm just going to see if I'm to take a little bit of that yellowy colour, quite light, isn't it, over there? Just bring that in on the edge. Bring that, maybe it's not quite as bright as that, but we'll pop that in, that's fine. And then it's a bit goldy, isn't it? Actually, probably is a bit of gold. Leaf or something. Gilt. Don't get leaf, did you, in those days? It was all gilt. Right. And then, so our plate now is starting to, take shape as well. But then we get this white section underneath over the top, if you can see that, which distinguishes it from the, so I'm just going in around the outside there. You can't see that. So I'm going in with the white chalk on its edge. And then what I'm doing with this light colour now is going in onto this plate where the highlights are on it, the shine. And we're just lightening up and brightening up some of the areas. Down here. And then obviously we've got that underneath. Okay. All right, so we're starting to take shapes. We're not going to see all of that until we get the next bits in. Take a little pause there, see how you're getting on until we go on to the next bit. Okay, so we've got obviously other areas. So I'm going to go in the back here with this teacup. Now this is quite white, isn't it, when we're looking at it? But what I'm going to do is go in with a few tones on this teacup. So let's see. This is my next light area. So I'm going to look at where the light's coming. And I'm going to look at where, as you're going down the bottom, I feel it's a little bit more kind of grey tone. So I'm going to bring in a little bit of more of a grey tone as we come down. Or you could go for like a bluish tone, whichever you feel. Just so there's a bit of differentiation. Maybe it's a bit more on this side it's a bit more in the shadow. But we can quickly pop it up. Now you can do all of the little little bits and things that are on the side if you want to as well, but we'll see whether I've got time to do that. So I'm going to go back in with my light colour, lighten up the other areas here, and then I'm going to go in with some pops of real white over the top as well in a bit. So it's just making sure you can keep your ellipses as well. So I'm just going to go in now, get this nice and white over the top where we need to be really, really light. Might be around the side a bit, where you get that shine on the edge. And then on the inside of the cup as well. I'm just using this blender to bring it round. As I'm working on a much smaller paper, the bigger your paper with pastels, obviously, and you can kind of get your finger in and everything there. Looking a bit wobbly at the minute, we'll sort that out in a moment. And then I'm just going to get the very top. It's kind of got a little bit of this lovely shape, haven't we, going round. And then again on this, this area of the plate, just looking at the brighter areas. Some may be a bit darker again. This is quite light over this side. It's quite difficult. This is why it's quite difficult to differentiate what's actually happening and where the edge of that teacup is, because it's so bright. So we can kind of make both of those areas quite light and bright. It's all looking a bit of a mix at the minute, but we'll just kind of bring some definition back in a moment. And then I'm just going to bring in, again, some of this kind of greyish, bluish tone. In fact, I'm going to use blue tone that I've got on the table mat here, because it looks as though there's a little bit of that need to be darker than that actually. I'll go a bit darker. I'll bring in a bit of a dark colour in here, this shade, just gently, so it's not too going everywhere. Okay, so I'm just going to bring in a bit more of the definition just by going in with some of these shadow areas as well. So down this side particularly. I'm just kind of popping in these darker edges that we can see. A bit wavy, isn't it? And again, even the edge of the tea. is a bit darker where the top of the T, where the ellipsis is there. And again, we've got these wibbly edges. And again, you can create some definition between the edge of the teacup some of the details of where, you know, you can see underneath where this goes underneath the saucer as well. Now obviously we can't really see too much there, there's just a bit of shadow at the bottom. Got a bit more shadow there. And we can just see that going around the back, so we don't need, there we are. Then again under here we get this really big shadow underneath. And then we've almost got some kind of goldy bits, and there's a few like little green shapes on there, isn't there? I can't really quite see what they are, so I'm just going to draw something in as though there's a bit of a pattern on there, but we can't quite see it. We've got this kind of almost a goldy thing going on there, and then this goldy rim. I'm just going to kind of pop a bit of a colour on the top if I can, just kind of ad hoc. And then it's almost like, you know, this pattern, isn't it? If I had a bit more time, I'll pop it in a bit more detail. But I'm just going to get a sense that there's a pattern there really on this one. Okay, so obviously we've got this bit between here, so I'm going to pop a dark blue, lighter blue and a dark blue. So I'm going to put a lighter blue here on this side of it, which is what I can see. And then we've got a bit of a dark blue underneath in the shadow here. And then a very dark in the corner there. So this is where we need to be kind of mindful of underneath this same very dark colour. Casting this shadow makes it feel like there's a lot of depth between the items. And then almost like underneath the, you get underneath the plate as well. You can see that. I'm going to do the same. I'm going to bring this blue under here rather than a very dark colour. I'm going to put a dark blue under there. And then we've got these two items here to do as well. So we've got like obviously the jam again, and then the white of the. Now interestingly on here, this is much darker, isn't it, in places. I'm actually going to go in with again, like almost a bit of a grey colour underneath, a lighter grey probably. Lighter grey on this side and the shadow. We're just observing the tones all the time, you know, tones, shapes, reflections. What can we see? And then I'm going to go in with, let's see, another kind of a lightish blue here over the top, put that in. Same on this one here, it's a little bit grey when it's where the reflection is underneath. And then we're just building up, so just keep checking your fingers are clean, it's important. And then lots of tones of yellows. Get that lovely almost a little bit more. This one. Darker there, so we've got the dark yellows in between the potted cream. And then we've got the difference between the shady areas and then the ones that are not shady. Get some other colours in there. There's all sorts of tones of yellows you can use. So again, you know, I'm just going for best fit in a minute. And get the top of that as well. Again, we're building it up, you know, kind of getting some lines and things like that through it. And then again, you know, we want these nice brights in there. Just building that up into a nice bright. So whichever one you want to use, I'll just look for my, I'm going to go with a whitish one in here, I think. Just highlighting those, you know, the areas that appearing to be yeah. Again, you can, you know, you can darken any areas between. Create a contrast. I might just go in with a little bit of a. There we go. And then again, you know, anything you've got that's dark going between here, look. And then going in with the nice light white highlights coming out. So we want the rim in. That is really bright. It's catching the light on the top. Yeah. So again, you just pull that in a little bit. I'm just making sure we've got the shadow between. A little shadow underneath. There we go. We're just getting a sense of that. So again, if you don't want to, you know, if there's not much shadow between, just do a nice bit of a broken line there. Okay. So yeah, so we're just kind of getting the, and see if you can see a shadow on an edge, that's fine. Pop that, you know, pop that in as well. And it's just coming together one piece at a time, so we can do exactly the same then with the jam. I would kind of get my pot in maybe, because then the jam can come over the top of it. So again, just looking at different kinds of shades. We've put the dark one in there, haven't we? So I'll just tend to put, I might put the white one over the top actually when we've done that. So I'm going to pop in just this area so far, the dish, little dish, starting to pop the light in. Okay, and then again, we're going in with some jam. So, quite dark under there actually. Hmm. Okay, so we're just kind of popping some bits and pieces in that jam. And then just adding to it. And then obviously we've got the spoon in there as well. So we'll finish on the spoon. I haven't made that quite as dark in places in that jam actually as the other one. Where is the colour after? Yeah, it's quite dark, isn't it, in places there? So obviously we've got the spoon in there as well. So it's just finding the shape of the spoon in there. So yeah, so just create that. It's quite a big shadow behind it, which is quite helpful actually. And it kind of bends over the stem and then comes outwards. So we have got quite a grey, some of it's quite grey, so we can get that a bit that's poking out, get that in as a grey colour. Start to pop some of these darker areas in that you can see on this spoon. Creates that shape. And then, where the kind of spoon comes over, get a shadow underneath that. And a little bit round there, a little bit of a shadow kind of in the middle of the spoon there, so it's a bit deeper. And we'll pop that in. And then obviously you want your little highlights there on the spoon as well, where it catches the light on the top and on the handle. Again, you might need to go over with a bit of just the edge carefully. and on this little bit of the handle as well there. And then you'd be starting to notice there'll be some other little areas that catch the light as well near the end. So there, so all we would need to do then is just keep going round and having a look, because we've not got all the shadows in, have we? We've started to, oh, we've not got the rim in either, so that's not important. So we want to kind of get the shadow underneath where the rim is, where we can see a change in the, yeah, it's a bit more shadowy under there. And then again, we've got this big shadow under here that's coming up the bowl. Under there, it's casting a shadow on here. That one. So that's important, is to get the shadows that are coming between and underneath things. I need to pop in a nice bright on the top of this ellipsis here again, show where the light's catching. There we go. And then, you know, just keep going on popping the, you know, the background in as well, where you want that to come to. Now I've just left mine quite plain. I'm quite happy for that. But if you really want, you know, if you want to do the checks, then you can just, what you'd be looking at is looking at what kinds of I've got these frayed edges. I'll just pop those in, make them a bit more, make it a bit more interesting. Just kind of wiggle it up a bit. Can't see it too much up there, but you can see that it moves. But really, all we'd be doing is like looking at, you know, is there any shadows underneath that need to be a bit more blue in places? So I would just like look, you know, is, you would expect to see it a bit more under the plate. So I'm not putting the checks on this one, just because I've run out of time really. But yeah, so we're like looking at where the areas are a bit more blue. That's what I'm doing, just because I'm just to create variety in there. We know that some of this is quite dark anyway, so just look for consistency all the way along. So we'll probably pop a little bit more of a shadow in there. Like that. And keep looking. Between the two, maybe a bit over here. Yeah, so we're just creating a little bit of variety on the with this, and it might be it's quite light at the back, so you might want to add a bit of light to it. Lighter area where it captures it. Over here. So yeah, you can pop the lines in. You just kind of like go across and pop those in, but I'm just keeping mine like that. And then what I would do is really just start to look at, you know, do I need to darken anything off? Do I need to add anything? But it's just enjoyable, isn't it? It's just really enjoyable having a go. Pop some more blue over this side. At creating just the tones and textures and looking at like how the light falls on things, how ellipses work, just creating your own version of you know, it's your own artwork of it. It doesn't have to be like a picture. It can be, you know, your kind of pastel effect art. So I hope that's been really helpful and you've enjoyed it. And then obviously you can pull off a little bit of tape if you've got some place on there. It always edges it nicely when you do that. Well, oops. Especially if you've been creating up to that point. Okay, hope you enjoy.